guys, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, hi, hello, welcome. I am Sherrilyn. Just lost my damn bun. This one has been driving me crazy. BRB. Okay, it's a little bit better. As I was saying, I'm Sherrilyn. I'm so glad you found me. If you're not new here, welcome back. Thank you guys so much for the love and support. It means the world to me. I used to be a Disney princess in a former life. I'm pretty sure that's not the first time these buns are gonna fly out because you know me, I'm really expressive. You're really passionate and into it, so my hair flies around a lot. I don't know why I chose these, but I saw J-Lo had space buns a while ago and I was like, okay, well, if J-Lo can have space buns, so can I. I'm on a J-Lo kick lately. Apologies in advance if they're gonna distract you by bobbling all over the place. This is what I've decided to do to myself. We'll just get into the case, okay? Before we get started, I just wanted to say thank you to Kira Khan for the suggestion on today's case. I think somebody else had also suggested this and I can't find the other comment. I suck at this. I need to write them down as I see them on a big sheet of paper so that I can go back. I could also just be making that up and thinking that I saw somebody, but anyways, I saw Kira's comment on this and this is definitely a case that I've been wanting to do because I remember when I saw it, I was just bamboozled with all of the twists and turns and then how it turned out. So if this is your first time watching it and you haven't heard about it before, you're probably going to feel the same. So thank you, Kira. And also thank you for showing up in the comments all the time. I see you, girl. I love you and I appreciate the love that you send to me. It means everything. All right, get settled in, you guys. Get your snacks, get your drinks. Today, I'm actually not drinking wine or an alcoholic beverage. Shocking. I'm having ginger kombucha because I think I have been overdoing it on the spice lately. I'm addicted to spice and I had an ignorant amount of spice the other day. I knew it was a bad idea at the time, but I just kept going. I don't know if I've given myself an ulcer with all the spice or what it is, but I'm just trying to be really easy on the tum-tum. So this week we're going to drink kombucha because the ginger is nice and soothing and that's where I'm at. Usually on this channel, if you're new here, we indulge in a little adult beverage, get snuggled in, and talk about the cases. So feel free to do that for me. So this is the case of the Lululemon murders as most people know it as. And that's because it took place in a Lululemon store in Bethesda. Yeah, you guys, you know me with the names. Bethesda, Maryland. I'm sorry, on March 11th, 2011, where employees Jayna Murray and her co-worker Brittany Norwood were found the following morning. Jayna was found dead after a severe attack, and Brittany was found in the bathroom. She was bloodied and zip-tied, but she was still alive. So the attack actually took place on Friday the 11th, but the girls were found on the morning of Saturday, March the 12th. The manager of the store came to open the store as per usual. She said that when she first walked in, nothing looked out of sorts. The front of the store was still in its usual order, but as she started making her way to the back of the store, things started creeping her out. It looked like there was a struggle, and then she could see, a little bit of traces of blood, and she heard somebody making noises in the bathroom, so she ran out and called 911. So outside of the store next to the Lululemon, there was an Apple store, and they had just launched the iPad 2, I believe. So there was actually a young guy waiting there to be first in line to get the iPad because he had actually come the day before and didn't get in on time. So he was like, fuck this, I'm getting this iPad today. So he looks over and he sees this woman in a panic and he goes over to see if he can help. She asks him if he saw anybody come out of the store and he's like, no, I didn't, but do you want me to go in and make sure everything's okay? So he goes in and he heads to this back room and it's closed off by a door. So he tries to open it and something is preventing him from getting in. So he peeks his head in and sure enough, he sees a pair of legs and somebody laying face down. So he's under the impression that this person is dead. So as he's heading back to let the manager and the 911 operator know, he looks off to the side and he sees this bathroom and inside he sees another set of legs. So he goes in and he sees Brittany Norwood and she is bloodied. Her pants are all ripped and destroyed and she's got her hands zip tied above her head and her feet are bound as well. So paramedics get there and they rush Brittany to the hospital, and then they've got the detectives staying behind trying to collect as much evidence as they can as soon as possible because this is not a very common thing in this area. This is a very suburby area, very, very low crime. They're not even sure where to start. So when they get to the back of the room and they find Jayna, they're all just horrified at how brutal the attack on her is. The room basically looked like a horror scene. Her pants were ripped, suggesting that there was a possible sexual assault. The back of her head was so badly beaten. She was blonde, but her hair looked just dark brown, reddish from the blood. And when they roll her over, they basically need to take a step back because they can't believe that somebody could inflict the wounds that were on Jayna. They see her ID off to the side in her wallet, and looking at that photo and looking at the girl that's in front of them, she's unrecognizable. So they noticed that there was a red toolbox just above one of her shoulders, and then as they're looking at the tools, they all seem to have some blood on them, and that's making more sense just by the naked eye that all of the injuries that she sustained, they seem to look different. It was different patterns, different depths, different widths. So they're coming to the assumption that this person took their time and they took like every tool out of this toolbox to inflict these wounds on her. Just makes you want to take somebody out by the kneecaps when you hear shit like that too. I don't think there's any like good way to take somebody's life, but when you hear about like torture and you see like how many defensive wounds she had on her. She was putting up a fight for her life, but it didn't appear that she was also trying to necessarily attack and be aggressive. She was just trying to protect herself, which didn't surprise anybody that knew Jayna because she was a force to be reckoned with, but she was also very loving and giving and understanding. She was also very intelligent, hardworking, athletic, and so beautiful. She was born November 22nd, 1980. Her parents, David and Phyllis, instilled very strong values in her and her two older brothers. Her dad was a Vietnam War vet who eventually went over to a career in engineering, but I think, you know, if you've ever been to war, you just always carry that with you. So her values were strong, old school. Her mom was also a family counselor, so that helped kind of balance and show her her softer side. And then actually her mom eventually went into a career as a flight attendant. So then she started getting a little bit more interested in culture and seeing the world. She was very strong-willed and a problem solver at a young age. I read this one story that I thought was pretty cute. It just reminded me of my youngest, who's like very feisty. So when Jayna was about 4 years old, she had done something to get in trouble, and whatever this something was, it merited a punishment of getting a little whooping on the butt with a wooden spoon. So I don't know if it was before she carried out the act or afterwards, but she went around the house quickly and took away all of the spoons and hid them so that she couldn't get a licking with them. So, you know, problem solver for sure. When she was younger, she also liked to tag along with her dad and her brothers to Boy Scouts. She would go to the campouts, learn all the skills. But since she was a girl, whenever they got new badges at their little badge ceremony, she couldn't get one. So her dad would wait until they got home and then give her little badges so she could also get them. And she seemed to have a really good balance of, you know, being athletic, interested in the outdoors. She had two older brothers, so it made her nice and tough. But she also had a feminine side, and she grew this passion for dance at a very young age, and she was a beautiful dancer. When she was younger, there was a point in her life where her main focus was to be on Broadway. But as she got older, she decided she wasn't really sure about Broadway. It wasn't always consistent, and even if you got parts in some of like the biggest shows, the money wasn't always kind of what she was striving for. So she wanted to explore her options in university, and she enrolled in St. Louis University, which had like a study abroad program. So she got to go to places like France, and she got to go to Vietnam and see where her dad fought. And then she spent over 2 years studying in Spain. So she graduated with a degree in international business and marketing. And I think through this program of being abroad and away from your family when you're all kind of homesick in a vulnerable stage in your life, obviously you build really strong relationships because you guys are all relying on each other. So her college roommate ended up becoming one of her best friends. And it was actually her who introduced Jayna to what Lululemon even was. Apparently, Jayna had noticed her bag and she was like, oh, what is this with this cute little logo on there? And then throughout the conversation, it came up how it was more of like the high-end spectrum of yoga apparel. And Jayna was really intrigued and a little bit shocked that a pair of shorts from Lululemon cost like $54 American. So for her marketing and business side, it was definitely peaked, and she, I think, wanted to get a foot in the door and then just learn a little bit more about how all of that stuff worked within that company. So that's what led her to get a job there. Everybody at Lululemon loved her. It sounded like a really tight-knit store. They described her as very goal-orientated and someone that they could rely on when they needed any problem solving, even just personal relationship advice and direction. There was even a bar next door to this store, so next door to the store. Often, after the girls closed, they would all meet over at the bar and have drinks and hang out. So it wasn't just coworkers, like they became a really tight-knit family. And Jayna was there for, I believe, over 2 years. So even Brittany, who had come onto the team and had only been there for about a month, said she felt like she fit in and wasn't feeling alienated or that it was too cliquey or anything like that there. Brittany also grew up in a very close family. She was born May 19th, 1982, and she was number 6 of 9 children. Her mom, Larkita, and her dad, Earl, they were really hardworking individuals. They were people who would often be working 12 plus hours a day just to make sure that the life that they were providing for their children gave them the most opportunity for success in the future. They raised the kids in a nice suburban area. They taught them the value of hard work. Brittany went to a private school, but even during times where business was slow or they were going through a little bit of a rough patch and struggling, they had instilled such strong family values in the children that they didn't even really notice when anything was going around. They had each other, and that was basically all that mattered to them. So it sounded like a house where you just found excitement and love in any situation that they were given. Now, I'm not sure if maybe Brittany at any point maybe had felt financial struggles that her parents weren't aware of. But at a young age, she used to tag along with her older sister who had a babysitting job for the neighbors. And the parents of this child that her sister would babysit noticed that sometimes when Brittany came, things would go missing. If they had money laying around or like their change jar, it would be like wiped clean. But they didn't have concrete proof or evidence, and they didn't want to make a big scene and accuse anybody of doing anything. So they ended up just firing her sister without an explanation and really didn't go into specifics. As for school, like I mentioned, she went to a private school for elementary. She was a good student. She had a passion for soccer at a really young age because her sister also loved soccer. And she was a really talented soccer player. She also liked to volunteer and give back whenever she could, which actually led to her class naming her the next Oprah. So all throughout school, soccer was the main focus for her. She wanted to be a part of the women's team, and she actually caught the eye of a lot of universities who wanted her on their team. So she ended up choosing Stony Brook University in Long Island. I think with any team, you build strong relationships, they become like a second family, so this was no different. A lot of her teammates looked at her as the life of the team and somebody that they could count on. But then they started noticing a little bit of a struggle because as much as they loved her, they were finding that anytime she was around or she was alone with their items in like the locker room, valuables or money started going missing. I believe she actually admitted to taking $20 from a teammate. So ultimately the decision was made that she was going to be let go from the team and part ways. And it caused her to lose her scholarship, and she didn't end up graduating when she was just 11 credits short. Basically now her dreams and aspiration of being on the national women's team are completely done, and she's back to square one. So she worked odd jobs trying to find her footing and what her new calling in life was going to be. She surprisingly was a teller at a bank. I don't believe anything suspicious or anything happened when she was working there, and it was through that job that she ended up meeting a dentist, and so he ended up hiring her to run his practice, and she ended up getting into a relationship with this guy. It sounds like she was very into it and very proud to have, a dentist boyfriend, but it didn't last. He breaks up with her basically because he says he can't trust her. I think she let on that she had graduated, and then it came out that she didn't. So every story that she was giving him as to why she didn't wasn't adding up for him. So I think it was important to him, and I think like education was important to him, and I mean obviously being honest and not lying. Their relationship ends, and she struggled with that. So when he started dating somebody new, she started stalking them, which led to them getting a restraining order against her. They actually accused her of stealing his girlfriend's valuables. She was missing expensive perfume, diamond earrings, her car and house key, I believe a couple pages out of her checkbook. So yeah, they get a restraining order, and she obviously leaves working for him, and she gets a job at a prestigious hotel. It sounds like this hotel hosted a lot of celebrities. She did really well there. She was actually the one that management would contact whenever there was like an unruly, upset customer, because she had this positive, peppy, chill vibe. She was compassionate to their concerns. So they found her very valuable to the team. Outside of work, she spent most of her time with her sisters and her nephews. When she did spend time with friends, they'd always say she was the one that was the motivator to get them into like kickboxing class or a boot camp of sorts, or like ab class. So she obviously never got over her passion for being athletic and staying physically fit. So she decides that her new revamp of herself is still going to be in the athletic world, and her new focus now is going to be on personal training. So that's how she ends up at Lululemon. When she first gets on, it's not actually at the Lululemon location that the attack on her and Jayna is at. She was actually at another location, and she seemed to do well there, but she was let go after, it sounds like they have I don't know if it's like an annual or biannual or what monthly, I'm not sure what it is, but there's a private sale that Lululemon hosts for their employees, and they get items that are like heavily discounted on top of whatever their normal discount is. But the catch is that you can't spend more than $1,000. So I guess she asked if she could go over the amount a little bit, and her manager agreed. But apparently she went over like an additional $1,200. So the manager caught a lot of heat for it, and she was pissed and obviously felt like she was taking complete advantage of. So she let her go. Brittany, I guess, was really upset about this. So she ended up writing to corporate, and she was like, listen, I've talked to a few other people within the company. I'm not the only one who's ever gone over a limit before. You haven't fired other people who have done this. Why am I any different? Friggin' buns. And I mean, technically she was given permission. So she was rehired and relocated to the Bethesda store. Like I said, she fit into the store as everybody else. She became a tight member of the team. Everybody worked really well together. I don't know if it's a Lululemon thing abroad that their commissions are structured like a pool, or if it was just this store or certain stores. But anyways, it sounds like they had to work as a close team because their commissions were pooled all together, and then it was divvied up. But similar to her close soccer team members, some of the girls are noticing that certain things are going missing. One girl had noticed that her expensive perfume had gone missing. A couple others noticed cash. So they tell the manager. I don't think at that point they really knew who it was. And I think it was also a big shock to everybody because everyone was so close. It would be like stealing from a sibling. When the manager went through and looked at the complaints and who was working that day, the common denominator was always Brittany. I think, basically without proof, and the fact that nobody really wanted to admit that it was her, they didn't confront her. They just decided, silently they were going to keep an eye out and see if it was her. So on the closing shift on the night of the attack, it was Brittany and Jayna that were closing. Jayna knew about the suspicions of Brittany, but she still got along with her. Jayna was planning on moving to Seattle to live with her long-term boyfriend, and Brittany had lived in Seattle at one point, so she would talk to her about all of the things that she thought she needed to do and see there. So with Brittany only being there for a couple months, Jayna was the key holder of the shift that night, so she was responsible for all the closing duties. Another part of this responsibility was for Jayna to do a bag check at the end of everybody's shift. So before they went home, she needed to look through their bags, make sure they didn't steal anything. So she does her bag check on Brittany, and she notices a pair of like cropped yoga pants, and they don't have a receipt. So Brittany said she had thrown out the receipt because she didn't think she needed to keep it, and that it was another coworker who had rung her in earlier on in the shift who had at this point left. So Jayna's like, all good, let's get out of here. We'll sort it through tomorrow. I can also just double check it on the computer when I get here tomorrow. So they lock up, and Brittany heads one direction to go to the train, and Jayna heads over to her car. So as she's heading there, she calls the coworker that Brittany said rung her in, and she asks if she did. And this girl says she didn't. So then Jayna calls the manager of the store, and she lets her know what happened. And the manager tells Jayna, don't worry about it. I'll deal with it in the morning. She's fired. So as Jayna's getting in her car, she gets a phone call from Brittany. And Brittany realizes she forgot her wallet in the shop, and she needs her Metro card to get on the train. So she's wondering if Jayna can let her back in the store. Apparently Jayna forgot her laptop there as well. So she was like, yeah, no problem. I actually was just about to go back anyways, so I'll meet you there. So when Brittany was interviewed at the hospital, she told detectives that when they got there, they went in the store and they didn't lock the front door because they knew they were just going to be in and out, grabbing their laptop and her wallet and heading out. So they're looking around and they're having trouble finding Brittany's wallet. So it's taking a little bit of time, and Jayna's just like, you know what, just use mine. I don't need it tonight. I'll get it from you later. I want to get out of here. So then she says as they're heading out, two men in all dark clothing, wearing masks, gloves, walk through the front door. And they head straight for the girls and start attacking them. Brittany says there was a taller guy and a shorter guy, and the taller one overpowers Jayna and takes her away. And the shorter one's got Brittany, and he's like, empty the cash register. So she opens up the safe and gives him the money, and then he takes her back to the back of the store where nobody can see from the storefront what's going on. She said at this point she can't remember details too clearly because she was hit in the head so hard. She was dazed, but she remembers getting zip tied. She remembers getting raped, being cut and beaten, and then left for dead. So detectives go around the area to other businesses that are surrounding the Lululemon store, and they want to take a peek at their surveillance because the Lululemon store didn't have any cameras. So they luck out with the Apple store. The Apple store had a camera that caught two guys that matched Brittany's description, and they were coming from the direction that the Lululemon store would have been into frame. At the Apple store, they also have like an ear witness. The manager of the store says that she heard screams coming from the Lululemon store the night before, but her and a security guard kind of went back and forth, humming and hawing if they should call 911, and ultimately decided that they thought it was just some drama going on. It could have been a phone call where the other person was getting bad news or going through a breakup, and they didn't want to interfere. They said that the noises that they heard clearly were women. They could hear women scream. They could make out a little bit of words. They thought they heard women saying, please stop, why, let's talk about this. But they didn't physically see anybody leave the store. Now the detectives are like, basically the key to this is going to be finding these guys in this surveillance camera. Everything's adding up. And they also had taken DNA samples from Jayna and Brittany. So they were waiting for that to come back. And I think just with like the disaster of a condition that the store was in, they were hoping that like throughout all of the blood and the possible sexual assault that the girls had gone through, they were going to have DNA to narrow it down. They also had shoe prints to go off of in the store. These were like a size 14 shoe. And as they're collecting evidence in the store, they come across a pair of shoes that match the same detail as the ones that are, tracing throughout the blood. So they're like, shit, this might be the same brand and model of shoe as whatever this guy's wearing. But then they see that the shoe looks like it's been recently cleaned, but there's trace amounts of like washed away blood. So then they're like, maybe these are the shoes, but why would they leave them? So then they go back to the tape of the two guys walking. So to narrow down who these are, they go around to surrounding businesses and they start doing interviews there. And then they get to the restaurant bar that the girls from the Lululemon store frequented often. And two guys that worked at the restaurant were like, that's us. So they said they left their shift together and that they weren't involved in any attack. When the detectives look into the time frame of them getting off work and showing up in the frame of the camera, they're eliminated as suspects because there was absolutely zero time for them to leave the shop and then show up in the frame that fast. So they're like, shit, that was basically our best chance at solving this. But soon after, they get a tip that this homeless guy in the area was taken to the hospital. And he had some really extensive injuries to his face. Like his whole one side of his face was completely like swollen and just mangled, and he's covered in blood. So detectives hold him. They end up getting a warrant for his DNA, but before they have a chance for that to come back, they have to let him go because they don't have anything concrete proving that he did this. And he's telling them that he was jumped by a group of guys and that's how he got those injuries. So while they're waiting on that, they move to Jayna's car. It was found 3 blocks away from her parking spot, and inside they lucked out because they found some trace evidence. They found some blood on her gear shift, and they found a hat in the back seat that had blood like on the rim, like on the sweatband part. So they're like, okay, well, unless Jayna had a hat that she bled into earlier, there's a really good chance this is blood that belongs to whoever did this. And then a security guard was able to confirm that he saw somebody in the car around 12:30 a.m. And this would have been a while after the attack, so it's safe to say that whoever left that behind wasn't Jayna, because Brittany said that attack happened around 10 p.m. But the security guard couldn't tell for sure if it was one guy in the front seat, if it was two, if it was a guy. He had no idea. So it's like basically every time in this case that they get a little bit ahead, they're shot all the way back. So they decide to hire an expert who reads like footprints and crime scenes. This poor guy's not able to get any closer to giving them answers either. He says that these footprints are like really combobulated. They're all over the place and they're not really matching what he's thinking would be like a pattern of a crime. So detectives start going through all of the scenarios that they have, all of the evidence that's kind of looking like it's not going anywhere. And the common outcome is that it's not matching Brittany's story. So the detectives start thinking Brittany knows more than she's letting on, and he's got suspicions that she knew that this attack was going to happen, that she was somehow in on it. And even her brother had a conversation with detectives and was like, it's a little bit odd that Jayna suffered these horrific injuries and Brittany's are more superficial. So they bring her in for questioning again, hoping that maybe something will change, but her story stays relatively consistent. So before she leaves, the detectives ask, have you ever seen Jayna's car? Do you know what it looks like? And she said she'd seen it. She knew, kind of what it looked like in the color, but she didn't know the model or any specifics. So they asked if she had ever gotten a ride from Jayna before, and she says no. But after looking at the evidence in the car, they're pretty sure she's the one that moved it. That hat that was in the back seat, turns out the spot of blood that was on that little sweatband rim I was telling you about, same spot as where the injury on Brittany's head would have been when she put that hat on. So they let her go because obviously at this point, this is just a hunch. I think they also felt like they didn't want to believe that she could be involved in this somehow. I think the scenario that they were playing out in their head was that if she had any involvement, the plan was not to go in there and kill Jayna. It was just to rob the store. She would get a cut. But what ended up happening was that things went sideways and Jayna ended up being killed. There was also a part for them that if they were completely wrong, like how horrible would that be? This poor woman has survived this this attack, and now she's being accused of having an involvement in killing her coworker. So basically at this point, they need to wait for DNA to come back. But the next day, after asking Brittany about Jayna's car, Brittany's brother calls the detectives and says that Brittany remembers something and she wants to come down and talk to them. So she comes in with her brother and sister, and she says that she's starting to remember, bits and pieces of more traumatizing things that happened that night. She remembers that they were toying with her and just like alluding to the fact that they were eventually going to kill her, but they were playing around for a little bit. She also says that at one point they drag her into the room that Jayna is and throw her on top of Jayna so that she can see what they did to her. So she says she was just tormented for hours and broken down and so scared, and they eventually told her to move Jayna's car. She doesn't have a clear answer why she was asked to do this, but she says they told her to hide it, and if she decided to run or call for help, they would kill her. She does as she's told, and she also says that there was a point where there was a patrol officer circling around the area, and she was so terrified that she just kept her head down, walked to the car, didn't even think about asking for help because she thought that she was going to be next. And that's basically her explanation. It doesn't really make much sense to me, didn't make much sense to the detectives. And instead of them feeling like she had something to do with it and knew the attackers, every time she opened her mouth, they were like, okay, not only is she involved and knew these attackers, she's the sole attacker. There was nobody else. Now everything's making sense, like why the shoe patterns weren't matching up to what would have happened, because every shoe pattern is like basically over top of Brittany and Jayna's. So it's like she went through the scene after and just kind of like ran through and trampled and had no rhyme or reason where these prints were going or what direction they were facing. And in fact, they find out that the pair of shoes were a pair that was at the store. So it wasn't anybody who brought them in and forgot them by accident. They were already at the store. They had them for any customers who were wearing like flat shoes and they wanted to get alterations and hemming done based on like a higher profile shoe. So why would a killer, bank on having this extra pair of shoes that he could change into, put them on, carry out this attack, take them off, rinse them off, put them back where they came from, and then leave? And just before the interview, they also got results back from the swabs for the DNA from the sexual assaults, and it came back no sign of a sexual assault. There was no tears or damage to either Jayna or Brittany. And going off of Brittany's story as to what happened, there definitely should have been, because she made note that they were violated with a coat hanger. They also discovered that the zip ties that were around Brittany's wrists and ankles had teeth marks in them, so that would be consistent with her putting them on and then, biting it to tie herself up in them. So they confront her with this evidence and she denies it, and she asks if her brother and her sister can come in the room. So they bring them in and the detectives lay out their assumptions and what they think happened. And her sister is so distraught, she completely falls apart, that she's got to leave the room. So then they leave her alone with her brother, and he's like, you need to tell me the truth. Like, if you did this, I just need to know, because we're going to need to get you a lawyer for your defense. She doesn't flat out come and say that she did anything. She says she wants to go home. She says she'll talk to him, but she doesn't want to talk to him there. And as he keeps pressing her, she says she doesn't want to tell him anything because she thinks that everyone's going to hate her. So the detectives are listening in the other room, and they are basically taking that as a confession. Like if you didn't do something, you would be like, absolutely not. You wouldn't be like, I don't want to talk about it here. Let's go home. I don't want you to hate me. I mean, it's basically like, yeah, I did. So they arrest her that day. They charge her with first-degree murder. And her trial came pretty fast, considering I find like in some of these cases, it can take like years for it to come. But it started in October of that year. And a few weeks after it started, she was convicted of first-degree murder. Her defense was basically that she snapped. They said there was no planning this out. They said that when she called Jayna to come back to the store, she did forget her wallet and just wanted to get it and get out of there. And that killing her it basically just happened. The prosecutor's case was obviously that that she definitely called her back there to silence her. Jayna didn't die quick. So, if this was just a spring of the moment thing that happened, they felt like she had multiple opportunities to kind of reel herself back and stop. This process was dragged out for a long time. Jayna had over 300 injuries to her body. So at any one of those, she could have stopped, or anytime she switched up her weapon, she could have stopped. There was evidence that Jayna even tried to leave out of the back door because there was her blood on the back handle trying to get out, but Brittany dragged her back into the store. So there, she could have stopped and let her go. So when it came time for the jury to deliberate, it only took them 20 minutes. They walked into their deliberation and they did like an initial vote just to see where everybody was at. And everybody voted for first-degree murder. But they felt like they needed to, do due diligence and play devil's advocate and try to weigh out some of like the defense options. And then what I read was that they couldn't even entertain it and get through the other side. They just cut it off in the middle, did their second vote, came to their final decision of first-degree murder. So on January 26, 2012, she was sentenced to life without the possibility of parole. She was given the chance to speak at her sentencing, and so she asks for forgiveness from her family and from Jayna's family, but she won't admit what she did. She just basically said, I would like to ask for forgiveness for the crimes that I'm accused of. So she was obviously lining up for an appeal, which she did try to get in 2015. So she asked for a new trial, saying that she wasn't properly questioned and that it should have been clear that the way that they were questioning her was as a suspect and not as a victim. Basically, everything was done the way it needed to be done, and the judge denied the appeal. So as of now, she will spend the rest of her life in jail. Nowadays, Jayna's family and friends get together once a month and they meet at a local bar or restaurant in honor of her memory, and they just share stories and try to laugh and see beauty in life like they know she would want to, which I think is just like rips your freaking heart out, because I can't imagine how hard that is. But I do think that there's something so beautiful in just making that commitment to her still and just, get together despite how hard it probably is. That Lululemon store is actually still operating. They added a stained glass panel to the entry of the store and it says love on it, and that is to represent Jayna. For this one, I guess for all of them, you just want to know why. I don't think that we will know why with this, though. It was obvious, even just by Brittany's apologies that she doesn't want to take any form of responsibility. And I don't think that it's that she's delusional that she didn't do it. I think it's more like for her character. She kept repeating that she didn't want anybody to hate her or be mad at her. So that kind of just, it sounds like she's never going to do it based on how she doesn't want people to perceive her. A lot of people believe that it happened because when they went back, Brittany asked Jayna not to say anything. And when she found out that she had already called the manager, she saw plans of becoming a personal trainer and her new path on life, just dissolving in front of her and just unleashed on Jayna. There's also the theory that she didn't even talk to Jayna about it and just ambushed her right off the get-go, not even knowing that she spoke to the manager. Well, I don't think we'll ever know, but I do hope that she has some sort of awakening and just acceptance of what she did. Even if it can't bring Jayna back, it can just give her family and friends an answer to why. I'm not sure what I think. I think I would assume more on the ambush side. I feel like if she knew that Jayna had already told the manager, then she would know, okay, well, clearly it's going to point at me because she's told somebody I stole, and this, is a motive. But I don't know. What do you guys think? There's lots to digest on this one. Lots of twists and turns. So I want to hear from you. That's it. That's all from me today, you guys. Enjoy your Wednesday evening. Cheers to you if you are having a drink from me. If you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It means the world to me. I love and I appreciate you so, so much. I'll see you on Saturday, you guys. I will miss you until then. Stay safe. Love each other. Love yourself. And I will see you soon. Bye.
We're gonna be alright.